let's go ahead and get started. So before we really get into this, I will admit I am not the know-all, be-all about going to Tokyo or Japan or foreign countries or anything. I've been a handful of times, and the couple of times that I have been, I've been there for an extensive amount of time, and the very first time I went on my own, without a guide, without knowing anyone, and I was there for a good 3 weeks. And you get to learn a few things. Also, I'm one of those people that are paranoid that I'm going to offend somebody, so I will quickly go to Google. Or I will learn the hard way. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So, I'm guessing everyone here is semi-interested in going to Japan, or Tokyo, rather.
Woo! Oh, Tokyo!
So we're pretty much going to stay around Tokyo because that's really all I know, and I will get you lost if you want to go outside Tokyo. Anyways, so who here does not have a passport? Cool. So if you want to go to Tokyo or any place outside of the United States, you need one. The wait process can take 6 weeks or longer, and costs around like $220. They're not cheap. They last for like 10 years, but you definitely need them if you want to go to Tokyo. You don't need a visa or anything if you're going to stay under 3 months. So yeah, let's go and get started. So let's go to Tokyo. The first thing we need, of course, is your passport. In order to get your passport, you need all kinds of information. You can get them from your county clerk's office, from certain post offices, etc. Be prepared to wait a really long time. I waited like 6+ hours just to turn in the paperwork. Anyway, so let's go ahead and figure out where we need to go. So we're getting ready to go, and we need to book it. book a flight. Now, there's a few rule of thumbs when you book any flight, anywhere. Prices fluctuate every day, all day. They go up, they go down. It's really hard to tell when the price is going to be at a good price for your wallet. Though there are 2 sweet spots that I have found out by booking tickets anywhere. If you stick around 3 months prior to your flight, or 6 weeks prior to your flight, those are going to be the best times to find to get the best prices. There's also another way to do it, and I don't know what it is, but it's basically where you have the international flights bid against the, like United and American and all that, and you can probably get something cheaper. But again, I would just stick to 6 weeks or 3 months. So you've picked your date. You also need to figure out when you want to go. I'm told you never, ever want to go in the summer. It is ridiculous hot. For those of you that are from South Texas, if at all, y'all understand what humidity is. It gets worse. Anyways, I typically stick around March, and it gets really cold. Like super cold. Like I bring a jacket and I'm still freezing. And it rains. No matter what time of the year you go, it always rains. Take an umbrella. If you want to wait to buy an umbrella, they're really cheap. They're like 300 yen for an umbrella, which is around $3. So we found out the dates we want to go. What do we have to do next? We need to book a hotel room. Real quick, I should have asked this in the beginning. Has anyone actually been to Japan? Cool. If you feel I'm leaving anything out, feel free to add your 2 cents in. I don't mind. Again, like I said, I am not the know-all, be-all. I've been a handful of times, etc. So we want to book a hotel room. The few ways that you can do this, there's plenty of ways you can save money if you want, depending on how long you want to go and how much you want to spend. You can do a hostel. Like there's hostels.com, they're pretty affordable, but in the long run, what you're really doing is you're sometimes renting somebody's room in their house or apartment, or you're renting somebody's dorm, or you're renting someone's couch. And a friend of mine's not too, he doesn't mind doing things like that, so he always goes, but I like hotel rooms. And so I stick through the third party, like Expedia, Priceline and such. I went through Expedia treated me really well. And I stayed for 2 weeks. I was able to stay around $37 to $57 a night at a 4-star hotel. And again, the longer you stay, the cheaper your room's going to be. Somebody was staying in the same hotel, booked the exact same way I did, and he paid $150 a night. Anyway, so when you really look for it, and the hotel rooms are not what you think. If you haven't been to Tokyo, if you haven't been to Japan, the rooms are not like the rooms here. They're not like lots of space, lots of walking around room. When you walk in, what you're going to see is a room that is roughly 12 by 14 feet. And most of that is going to be filled with a bed and about a walk space of roughly that much. And that's it. There may be a desk built into the wall. The second time I went, I paid a little extra to have a little bit more walk space, and it wasn't really that much. I'll have a quick hint. If you're booking, the rooms will say certain things like a twin bed or a double twin or things like that. What that means is you get a twin bed, which is the size of a Japanese person. When I say Japanese person, I don't mean a person. That came off wrong, sorry. But they're much smaller than we are, as so are their beds. So when you want to book a room and you want a nice sized bed, you're going to want to book something like a double, which is going to be twice the size of that bed. Again, another culture shock you might run into, especially in your hotel room, is going to be the restroom. Now you'll be faced with one of two options. You're going to look at a bidet, which is pretty much what you're used to, with a few more gadgets and a seat warmer and all that. It's pretty neat, a little scary. Otherwise, essentially what you're looking at is a hole in the ground. And I don't need to go into details. I don't want to go into details. But it's an interesting experience, and it's a definite culture shock if you run into it.
An indoor outhouse.
Exactly. It flushes. All right, so you have your hotel room, you book your flight. The next thing you should probably be concerned about is how you're going to eat or spend money or anything like that. So you have a few options. You cannot use the money in your pocket. However, you can use your credit card. Yes?
Is there a place where you can transfer your American money for their money?
There is. There are several places you can do that. There's currency exchanges. I know there's currency exchanges in some malls and in the airport. Yes?
So you've been to Japan, right?
Yes.
Okay, what's a dollar worth, for how much for them?
It's actually pretty close. Think of it in the terms of pennies. When you say 100 yen, it's like 100 cents, so it's like $1. However, there's a small difference. It's pretty close. So when you pay 100 yen on the 100 yen value meal at McDonald's, and they have them there, you're essentially paying $1.12, maybe a little less. It's fluctuated. When I went last, it was super close. When I checked last month, it got even closer. So, and they're not very fond of that. They say that their money is losing value because it's close to the American dollar. They said that to me. Anyways. Okay, so where was I? I feel like I was sidetracked. Money. So what you're going to want to do is, let me actually answer your question. There's currency exchanges at the airport, at your airport here that you get on, and at the airport when you arrive in Tokyo. But there's also another way if you want to just carry cash. I use Wells Fargo, and I know other banks do this too, but if you know well enough in advance, at least 2 weeks, you can take your money in and say, I want to convert this into Japanese yen. They will order the yen for you, and it takes some time to get in. Some banks do have it already in, so it's pretty instant. But for the most part, wait 2 weeks, and you get your money. The benefit to that is they typically don't charge you currency transaction fee or whatever it is. And it can, yes, it can hit you pretty hard. And that's what you're going to face if you take a credit card. Now, if you can use your credit card, especially in Tokyo. But there are a lot of shops in Tokyo. What I did every single day was I took quite a bit of money, so I pulled out about 30,000 yen, is that right? 3,000 yen every day. That's $30. 30,000 yen. I pulled out 30,000 yen not every other day, or whatever it is. I was there for 2 weeks, and I wanted to buy trinkets at small shops, things like that. You don't have to do that, and you can use the ATMs almost anywhere. Not everywhere. There are Japanese, yes?
My experience has been that the bank ATMs are pretty useless. The post office ATMs are where you want to
Right, the post office are really nice, but the best ATMs that I've been able to find are the ones inside the 7-Elevens. And the 7-Elevens are everywhere. There's so many 7-Elevens and they are so profitable that 7-Eleven has their own bank in Japan. So I trust the bank. I trust the ATM. It's nice. It's convenient. There's not a huge fee. Now, however, there is another way to do this, and this is what I do. This is what I used to do every year until I was approved for a credit card through this bank. If you use Capital One, by the way, I don't work for them at all, but I will heavily push for them because Capital One, their cards have no fees attached to them whatsoever. So when you use your card in Japan, it is straight money. There's no currency transaction. The only time you're ever charged a fee is if you use an ATM. And if you have free ATMs with your card, then you're not even charged that. With that being said, I don't like that bank. I was approved for a credit card through that bank, so I get that benefit anyway without having to have a bank account. Moving on. So we figured out what to do with money. Let's go ahead and do a little sidetrack onto eating real quick. In Tokyo, there's not a whole lot of groceries, and the groceries that you do find in Tokyo aren't going to be on the cheap side. You're going to have to go towards the outskirts of Tokyo, or just far away from the center, rather. And you'll find some neat things that you don't know what they are. But for the most part, you're going to be walking around. You're going to want to find a place to eat, and you're going to want to spend in between, on the cheap side, you're going to spend anywhere from $5 to $7 a person, and that's without ordering a drink. Yes?
What kind of American restaurants are in Japan?
There's a lot. Like they have KFC, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, etc. Though I would suggest to try those places. It is definitely a culture shock because it is nothing like what you expect, except McDonald's. When I first went to Tokyo, McDonald's was really different. Everything was tempura battered. Though when I went this past March, the food tasted exactly the same.
Even their regional items have the McDonald's flavor.
Right, like the chicken nuggets, the first time I went, were tempura battered and very weird. And the second year I went, they tasted just like ours and wasn't very fancy. However, if you walk into a Denny's, you're not going to recognize anything on the menu. But they will give you a fork and spoon with your meal. Yes?
This is just a matter of taste. If you want a hamburger, try some of the local places like Moe's. They're
Mossburger?
Yeah, Moe's Burger.
Love that place. It's the only burger, because they told me this, the only burger place in all of Tokyo that uses real beef. Otherwise, you're eating kangaroo. Okay, so you've booked your flight, you've booked a hotel room, you have figured out what you're going to do financially. You also do want to figure out how much you want to spend. That's also going to, that puts us into travel. So when you're in Tokyo, the best way to travel is going to utilize the trains and the subways. Because it is a very long walk. And Tokyo is one of the largest, no, the largest city in the world. I think it's like the second largest by square inch, mile, whatever. But by population, it is the largest city out there. And there's a lot of space for those people. So to get from point A to point B, you're going to want to use the train system. Now, at first glance, if you look at the maps, it's pretty scary. And if you are not colorblind, you should be okay. I am colorblind, so I could not tell that this track only goes in one direction and this one goes in another. I didn't actually find out that they were color-coded until like the last time I went. But that being said, if you just kind of know, if you at least know how to spell your gate and such, in Tokyo, most of the stuff is written in English or letters and such. The further you get away from Tokyo, the further away you are from speaking English to someone, or reading English for that matter. And unless you know how to speak Japanese, I would suggest staying to the larger cities like Kyoto or Tokyo. Anyways, so traveling, trains. The trains are different from the subways, etc. What I really would suggest, and I would love anyone's input, has been, I use the Suica cards. It's S-U-I-C-A. You put down 2,000 yen, and they take a $5 fee. Anyways, you're going to use that. It works just like a normal bus pass. Every time you use it, money gets taken off. It's actually kind of neat. You can use it inside some of the convenience stores, etc. Does anybody have a question about travel? Yes?
Have you tried using the Japan Rail Pass?
Yes, that's very expensive. Yeah, yes. Did you have any other follow-up?
You said it's very expensive, but basically you found it to be a better deal just to pay as you go.
Well, it's not really pay as you pay.
What do I meant, like just to buy like?
Well, the rail pass is typically, I think, what is that? I might be confusing this, but typically you buy that when you actually want to travel out of Tokyo.
Yeah, that'd be
It's more
around.
Yeah, because you're paying around $200, and literally the first time you use it, it pays for itself. So using the rail pass is neat. You can use the bullet trains, etc. But I don't think it makes up for the amount of times you travel in a day, because in a day you're going to be spending anywhere from $5 to $15 depending on how many times you use the train and such. Sorry, I need water.
The rail pass only covers the JR lines. If you're just
Right, the rail pass covers the JR lines. When I stayed, I stayed at a hotel near Tokyo Big Sight, which there's two ways to get there. You can take the monorail, which is really cool, or you can take the subway. And that is not a JR line. I found that out the hard way. Okay, so we're in Japan. We're getting around. We have learned how to read the maps. They're very extensive. They're very interesting. If you want to stick to all the sightseeing areas, the Yamanote line, which no one's going to remember that, but if you're subconscious, you can go for it. The Yamanote line takes you to all the places you want to see as an anime fan, as a cosplayer, as if you're into the Lolita stuff. Harajuku is going to be the greatest place you want to go to. And if you want to buy clothes, I'm sorry, you can't. Well, with that being said, the sizes difference between us and the Japanese, If you wear a medium, you do not wear a medium in Japan. You wear something like a 2L, which is something that some shops don't carry. With that being said, let's go ahead and go on. We've learned how to travel around Tokyo, so now we want to buy things. You know, we want to bring back souvenirs. There's a few things you need to learn. The most important thing I learned when it comes to this is how to ask for something, how to ask how much is something. And my Japanese is awful. And but you point at something and you look at the person that works there, obviously, and say, "You get a discount," and you're asking, what you're saying is how much is this? And they'll tell you, and you either need to be prepared for what they tell you or how they tell you. Because if they tell you something is, 100 yen, 200 yen, 300 yen, 4, 5, once you go above that, it's not too difficult, but I'm sorry, I have to put the mic down. Once you go above 500 yen and they're going to tell you how much something is, they're going to put their finger to their hand. And that means 600 yen, 700 yen, etc. I say this because I had, and it's not just me, I know several people have had this issue. When they do this, it's kind of confusing because you don't realize they're going above 5. You feel like they're pointing at their hand. And just understand that really helps in the long run. And second, when you go to pay for something, you are not going to hand the money directly to them. What you're going to see a number of things. You're going to see a tray on the table, or you're going to see a tray that is attached to the cash register itself. And what you need to do is you put the money in the tray. And you can slide it to them, you can leave it there, whatever, but you do not hand the money to them. That is very, we'll just say disrespectful. Thank you. And so make sure you do that, they will do the same thing to you. Sometimes if they see you're foreigners or American even, they'll just hand it straight to you. I found that to be a thing in a lot of the Lawsons I went to, which is basically a corner store. But that is a big thing. Honestly, when they see you try, it means a lot to them. It really, there's a thing about Americans in almost every country, and Japan is no different. The rude fat Americans. I mean, anything we can do to break that stereotype, the better. So, anything else about shopping? Anyone have any other questions? Yes?
When you point at the thing you want, what do you say again?
Ikera desu ka?
Let me go through that
I
slowly.
could try to figure out how to spell that if you'd like.
Just remember the anime, Akira.
Yeah. But I believe it starts with an I, so it's like
Ikura.
It does, but it sounds like that.
Right. So it's Ikera desu ka?
Okay.
And we'll go over some other things you need to know. Because honest, the first thing I learned how to say was "Tore wa doko desu ka?" which is where's the toilet? That was the most important thing I learned I needed in the middle of Tokyo, and I didn't know how to speak to anyone.
Oh, hero.
And however, I will say a little story. I was in Shinjuku, and I walked up into someone in a kiosk in the mall, and I was dancing around, and I said, "Tore wo doko desu ka?" And they said, "Oh, the bathroom, it's on the second floor." With that being said, I do want to break a stereotype that apparently is a thing. I'll get to you in just a second. I have recently heard that people seem to think that all Japanese know English. And that is not a truth. That is very much not a fact. And where that really comes from is that the Japanese take English in school from the time of, I think, like 4th grade to the time they graduate. Now, the person that is teaching them English isn't an American, it isn't somebody from England, it's not an Australian, it's a Japanese person who doesn't understand the dialect of English. So And this happened to me. I had a hard time telling somebody what I wanted. I didn't know the Japanese word. I was saying the word in English, and I can't remember what I was saying for the life of me. But what I do know is I went into the most broken English I could and said that word, and they understood me perfectly. But that being so, what was your question?
Do you think it's such for electronics, or can we still use same plug to have the
You can use, right, you can actually use, you can use the same plugs actually, except the 3-prong. They do have converters for it, but for the most part, just try not to bring a 3-prong and you'll be fine.
You can hook a DC adapter sort of thing usually.
Right. Okay, so,
Connected to that, are there any issues because of slight differences in their current levels using like laptops and stuff? Well, we're 110, they're 100.
well, I've taken my laptop every time I've gone,
Okay.
and I've never had an issue.
Okay. I'm going on a trip later this year to
Okay.
Japan, and I want to have an idea if I need to get any extra things. to
You
make sure my
shouldn't,
electronics
you shouldn't
work.
have to. Also look at your hotel. For the most time, every hotel that I've ever stayed in Japan has given me free internet. And it's always been through a wire, Cat 5 or Ethernet, whatever. I would, if you want to connect to multiple devices like your phone or a tablet or anything, I would take your own wireless hub. I mean, that really helps. So let's go ahead and, now that that got me thinking about it, let's go ahead and get to communications. When you're traveling, and especially if you're traveling for quite a bit of time, or any bit of time, you're going to want to communicate with people back home. Now, there's a few ways to do that. You can do the expensive route, and if you have the money and you want to do that, go for it. You can do one of two things. You can have an unlocked phone and rent a SIM card at the airport, and the rates are very expensive, especially for calling back home. Or you can rent a phone, and the rates are even higher. And there's a chance you might even charge the person you're talking to. So, like I said before, most rooms have internet. What I did was Skype. And actually what I did was I paid $3, I don't know if it's the same thing, but you get unlimited minutes, and you can call any American phone line at all. With that also being said, I paid a little extra. I actually I bought a phone number from Skype, and so I'm from Austin, so my mom could call me locally and reach me in Japan via Skype. There's also other ways to do it. Gmail has a really nice feature that you can send SMS text messages or phone calls for absolutely no charge. It's kind of, I'm not going to explain how to do it, but you can look it up. It's really easy, and it's very, I was very appreciative. Anyway, so communications. Anybody have any questions about communications and such? I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, and then we're going to move on. So another thing you can do is if you actually want to communicate with people there, let's say you're going for business, or you're going there and you meet somebody that you want to stay in touch with while you're there and you don't want to use your hotel phone, etc. What you can do is there's a company there called Southbank, and you can go there. It costs around $60, and you can buy a pay-as-you-go phone. And it works the same way as they do here. You turn it on, you get a number, you make phone calls until your money runs out. Whatever. So, moving on. Let's talk about eating. Many places you go to are going to, you're going to have the Japanese cuisine. Much like America, Japan is not just bound by one type of food. They have several kinds. You're going to see lots of crepes, lots and lots of crepes. But you're going to see everything from Italian, you're going to see pizza, you're going to see hot dogs, but they're not going to be the same in the traditional sense. The hot dogs are a little weird. Everything tastes a little weird. You order a pizza, it's going to come with a fish on it, and I don't mean anchovies. Yes.
So does it sell like beer and food and vending machines in Japan?
Yes. You can buy beer from vending machines.
Vending machines everywhere.
Yes. And the vending machines are everywhere. There's also another thing. It used to be a thing where you could buy things like panties from a vending machine. That used to be a thing in Japan. It's not anymore. However, I found one on my last trip. And one of the very popular places to go to shop is, oh my gosh, Nakano Broadway. It's a very large mall, but in a dark corner of the mall, I found a vending machine that had panties in it. Little side note, I did not buy them. So yeah, let's go. Like I said, we're going to talk about food. And there's certain things you need to know. And if anybody knows the answer to the one thing I'm about to say, please chime in. When you sit down to a meal and you receive your meal, I don't know what it is. If you want to tell me, that's awesome. There's a thing you say in Japanese. That you put your hands together and you're basically saying, yes. I was trying to think of the translation, but it's basically, I'm ready to this. Yes, I'm receiving this amazing meal. And this is the thing, and I suggest doing it. Eat the ramen. The ramen is not what you expect if you're used to those like 10-cent ramen packages. And if that's what you're expecting, you're in for a rude awakening. But it is very delicious. And when you are eating anything, when it comes to ramen or any sort of soup, and this might be a little foreign to some people, but slurp your soup. That very much lets the staff and the cooks, especially if the cooks are near, that you enjoy your meal so fast that you cannot wait to have it in you. But that's very much of a cultural thing. You're being very polite. Another thing is when you sit down for a meal, you're going to see something, and it's going to look like a moist towel. And it's always going to be either on the table, they're either going to bring it to you, or anything. One quick thing, they don't give you moist towelettes. So keep that in mind. So what you're going to do is they're going to give it to you, or it's going to look like just a towel folded in half, hot, cold, whatever. And I'm going to have to put the mic down. And what you do with this towel, what it is for washing your hands. And you wipe your hands with it. Very good. They're not entirely into, the whole wash your hands at the sink. So you wash them at the table, they know that it's clean, etc. Anyway, so you take that and you fold it and you put it out of the way. And you leave it wherever you put it on the other side of you, and you don't touch it for the rest of the meal. This thing never touches your face, it never touches your lips. This is not to cool you down, heat you up, or whatever. It's simply to wash your hands. Any questions about eating? Another quick thing about eating at a restaurant. Some places do this in the States, but there is sometimes a button on your table, and when you want a refill or you want your waiter or waitress's attention, what you're going to do is you're going to hit this button. Now, not every single restaurant has it, but it's about 50-50. And I tell you this because me and several other of my friends had the same issue where we see this button, we don't know what it does, and we push it. And then a waiter comes to you, and they ask you what you want, and you tell them nothing. Because in the States, they really want your tip. They really want that tip. They want it to be that high 15%, 20%, whatever. And so they will come over and want to fill your drink every chance they get. Sometimes you don't want them to. That is not a thing in Japan. In Japan, when you see the price of your meal, that is what you pay, and you do not tip for any reason at all. It is very rude. Don't do it. Moving on. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Going back to Itadakimasu, when you're eating out in Japan, do you say gochou-sama at the end of the meal too? The finishing statement?
Yes. Okay. Being a foreigner, they're not going to expect you to do that. And this happened to me a few times. And like I said, it was only a few times. It could have just been a certain place I went to. Sometimes they won't even give you chopsticks to eat your meal because they think you don't know how to use them. But that only happened a few times. And I mean, sometimes I think they give it to me to make sure I know how to use it. Oh. Okay, so, leave anything out? Does anyone have any other questions about anything I've covered? Yes.
I know you talked about minutes, I was looking at that over, like you were talking about using.
Yes, you can get them from SoftBank, or you can rent the SIM cards, etc. Unless you live there, you're pretty much paying for it. Now that he's brought that up, there's a few things you can do. Most of Tokyo has a Wi-Fi signal somewhere, and you can actually pay for a Wi-Fi signal for a week. And I want to say it's somewhere in the vicinity of like $15 or something. And that comes extremely handy, especially if you're using Skype, because you can be in the middle of some district downtown, and you can be talking to your husband, wife, brother, mother, whoever on Skype and video chatting. And this last time I went, my coworker was talking to her husband and showing him all of Japan as she was walking, and that was a really neat thing. You want to be able to show people these things and not have to wait, the several days it takes to get home. Thank you for that question.
So basically, if you were to do that, you could pretty much take your phone, pop your SIM card out, put your Google Voice and
Right. You can connect to the Wi-Fi. And actually, if you connect to the Wi-Fi, you don't even need to take your SIM card. Just don't connect to the internet. Also, if you have the money, it's cool. You can use some of your carriers there. They'll connect to the towers, and the rates are still outrageous. I wouldn't suggest doing it. Any other questions? You first.
General question, going through tourist sites that take you out to Tokyo or wherever for a couple of days, like 4 to 7 days or something, are they generally a ripoff, or do they actually say they're in the long run, like a whole package?
Yes and no. You're going to want to buy a rail pass if you do that. You're going to save money. The rail pass is ridiculously expensive. Well, it's like $200, but to ride the trains without the rail pass is like $400 one way. Like I said, it pays for itself in the first year. But you basically, when you buy things like that, you're buying the rail pass. When you spend that, you're spending for the experience. Yes, you're basically wasting a little bit of money, but they're showing you things that you either didn't know beforehand, or you were just utilizing the luxury. It's basically like taking a tour, in the States of, you're going to a resort and all your food's paid for, and you pay this large lump sum up front, and you're paying for everything. Oh yeah, those things. Yes and no. It depends on what you use. I've seen a few of them where you pay $3,000 and you're there for a week, which it's money well spent. But if I was there for a week, I would only spend about $2,000 and still have that extra $1,000 to spend because I know what I'm doing. So essentially, what you're paying for is you're paying for them to not screw you over, not to get you lost, things like that. That's some of the questions we hear. Sorry.
Presuming that most of us would probably not be fluent in Japanese language and customs and such when we go over there, do the Japanese people tend to appreciate whatever little things we do
Yes.
learn to do?
Yes.
Or do we just kind of come across as posers or something?
No, they definitely appreciate everything. And if they get a little comfortable with you, they're actually they will try to practice their English with you. Yes?
You mentioned the rails in the subway. Is it at all possible for foreigners to rent cars as well, or is there?
It is possible. I believe there's some sort of document you have to fill out about renting a foreign car. It's a little difficult. The only time I've ever seen it really beneficial for a foreigner, like I said, even the locals take the trains and subways everywhere. A friend of mine brought his family to Tokyo, and he wanted to go to Mount Fuji. Now to get to Mount Fuji, you need to get on the rail pass. It costs $200 a person to get for the rail pass. However, if you rent a car, it costs $75 a day, and everybody can get in the car and drive down there. So you're saving money that way. And the only bad part is they do drive on the other side of the road. And my friend who did do that drove for a straight hour on the wrong side of the road. Did you ever hear that? Okay. Yes.
As far as the trains, like how tight does it get packed?
It depends on the time of the day. In the morning, it's pretty packed. The worst time is when you get to the last train. And when you get to the last train, it's like fighting for your life. You will literally get pushed out of the way so people don't miss that train. Because once you miss that last train, the next train isn't coming until the morning. And if you want to get back to your hotel room, sometimes it's going to cost anywhere from $40 to $80 to $200. Also, quick side note, I completely don't know why I forgot this. Make sure you know where you're staying and how to get there, because what I do is I take the limousine shuttle, and the limousine shuttle takes me directly to my hotel. In the past, it's taken me to a nearby hotel, and it costs around $30 each trip. But if you want to take a taxi, it is somewhere around $800 to take a taxi. And there is sort of a cheaper way if you want to take the trains, but you're going to take a lot of trains, and if you have a lot of luggage, you're going upstairs, you're going up all kinds of different ways. And there are a lot of stairs. Be prepared to walk. Take a good pair of shoes. If you want to go shopping, sometimes you're going to have to climb up 12 stories by stairs. So let's go ahead and, yes?
Well, if you wanted to keep going.
Well, I had something else to talk about. What was your question?
I was just going to ask for you to elaborate on the politeness issue and...
That's actually what I was going to try to talk about. I wanted to talk about mannerisms and like certain phrases you might need to know, and things like bowing. Bowing is still much of a thing in Japan. And when somebody bows to you, this is really much the rule of thumb for foreigners, is when somebody bows to you, you bow back. And you might not know how much you need to bow for, how long you need to bow, and what you really need to keep in mind is what you want to do is you want to bow a little bit longer and a little bit lower than they do, because there is no such thing as too much respect. No such thing in Japan. So and they really do appreciate the efforts if they see that you're kind of uneasy with it, but you're still trying. They don't think that, look at this poor slug. They really see somebody who's trying and trying to understand the culture. Any questions about that? I'm going to go into some more details. Yes?
I'm just going to get back to the $200 per shuttle. I never got to actually ask, how long does that last for?
I want to say it's like a week. Or maybe a couple days. I can't. I've only taken the rail once. And I get scared once I start leaving places that have English on the walls. Okay, so a few phrases, and I may butcher this really badly, but it's helping. So before I mentioned my favorite phrase, which is "Tore wa doko desu ka?" which is basically asking where the restroom is. Now, if you take the last part of that phrase, doko desu ka, that's basically saying where is something. And I mean, you could be that person that goes up and say, you know, McDonald's doko desu ka, and they'll understand what you're saying. You're not saying it properly, but they'll understand you. But just like I'm saying, doko desu ka is you're trying to find where something is, and that is very helpful if you're lost. If you need to try to find the train, if you need to find the subway, if you need to find a store, it's very helpful. With that being said, there's 3 phrases you really need to know when you're there. One is thank you. And it's not just arigato. Everybody understand? Well, most people should know arigato is thank you. That is what is it? You use that when you're talking to somebody that you know, your friend, your parents, your family. When you're talking to somebody in the street, you're saying thank you to the person you just bought something from. You're going to add a little bit to it. It's arigatou gozaimasu. And like I said, I probably butchered that. But you're essentially saying thank you very much. But that is something that culturally is used with the public. And if you want to be a show-off, it would be very, very, whatever you say, arigatou gozaimasu. You use that when you want to be very polite, etc. The other things are going to be sorry, and I want to say it's gomenasai. And you say that a lot. The Japanese as a whole are very sorry all the time. It is something they say when they bump into people, when they feel they're being rude. And they're pretty much a society that doesn't like to be rude or stand out or anything. Another is going to be suemasen, which is excuse me. And you can use that in several different ways. To get somebody's attention. If you want to cut through a crowd, you're going to put, you let them know suemasen. They will understand you. They'll realize you want to get through. Those are 3 phrases. I don't see any taking notes, so if you want me to slow down, let me know. Any other questions about any sort of manners and phrases? Yes?
Well, I was just going to ask, is it worth it, or do they appreciate if you sort of take the modesty to the extra level and like, I'm sorry, I don't know your culture very well, or I'm sorry, I'm trying my best, or I don't know English very well, or prefacing something like, what I'm about to say, I don't know Japanese very well.
Right.
So please forgive me in advance or something like that.
That definitely goes a long way. That shows that you're trying and you're struggling, etc. But very much don't try. Because when you don't try, you end up spending your entire time not talking to anyone and coming off very rude. I'm trying to think, am I missing anything? So, yes? Basically, no gaijin.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's a thing that exists there. I didn't see it. It's not very heavily there. It exists a lot in Shinjuku and in Roppongi because there's a lot of bars that they don't want foreigners to come into. So yeah, there is a thing, and it seems very racist, probably because it is. And one thing you will notice if you go is there's not a lot of diverse culture. There's a lot of Japanese people. Here in the room, there's a lot of diverse culture. There's people, there's family that came from overseas to America. The United States is pretty much a sea of a lot of different cultures. And that's something you see almost every day. And that's something that stood out to me when I was there, is there's only Japanese people there. And I mean, there's always the exception. There's a lot of foreigners that have moved there for work or business or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, you're going to see Japanese people. So yeah, there's going to be a time where you see Japanese only, or no foreigners, or you'll see like a little white person with a little X around them. And I mean, that's also another thing. When you see someone crossing their hands or their fingers, making an X, what they're telling you is no. And they can tell you anyway, or any whatever. In several cases, I asked how much something was, and they said, no, it's not for sale. Yes? Yeah.
When you buy souvenirs, is it feasible to ship things home, or should you figure that everything needs to fit in your suitcase to go back?
That's a good question. What I do is I take one suitcase, and packed in my suitcase is a duffel bag. And what I will do is whatever I buy, I put in my suitcase because it has hard walls, and I put my clothes in the duffel bag because typically, and this is, I know this is definitely for United, you can take two checked bags there and back. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Shipping is very expensive. And if you trust it to live in your suitcase okay, I would definitely suggest to do that. And they do ask you if you brought anything, make sure you don't bring like plants or fruit or over 1 liter of alcohol. That's a thing. When you're bringing back souvenirs, I guess you just want something. When you bring souvenirs, also shop around for souvenirs because places like Akihabara, things like that, they're going to have a lot of souvenir shops, and a lot of them may not be the best place. I shopped around for a whole week until I found a really nice place that was near Tokyo Tower. Yes?
Do they have laundry that you can go to wash your clothes?
Most hotels actually will have laundry there, and I don't remember seeing like a laundry building or anything. That could be a thing, but I have never seen one. And I have looked for them. I never asked for them because I didn't know how.
Coin
But-
laundry. That's what they call it, coin laundry.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Awesome. Yes. Huh? I don't think so. I mean, I did notice there are a lot of left, right-handed people. That's just because that's something I'll notice, but there was no, I don't think there's any cultural significance about it. I saw some messages and this.
Well, what are some places or things that you should definitely try to experience?
It depends on what your personal, what your goal is really, because like if you're a big anime fan and you want to see the maid cafes and you want to see all the video games and the toy shops and everything, I suggest you go to Akihabara. And in Akihabara, there's a really neat place. If you go through the Electrotron exit and you walk outside, you're going to pass the Gundam Cafe. It's a real cafe, all about a Gundam. There's another Gundam cafe with a life-size Gundam, and it's really cool, and it has a neat little light show with it. But you'll pass the cafe, you'll pass some shops, and you'll see some escalators that are going up, and this is all outside. And you go up the escalators, and you go through, and you see it's like an Evangelion gift shop. It's like I think it's called the anime store or something like that. But that particular store has a map of Akihabara with a lot of stores, a lot of restaurants, maid cafes, everything. And they have a map in English, Korean, Chinese, Spanish, everything. So that's a really good resource. If you're wanting to do a lot of shopping, there's Shinjuku. I mean, every district has a place where you can buy something. But Shinjuku specifically has where you walk out, you will see a mall, and another mall, and a mall inside of another mall. And they utilize every single ounce of space. If you're walking through a hallway, that hallway will have 3 or 4 vendors on either side, even if the hallway is only 10 feet across. Did that help? Like if you want to see like shrines and such, is that what you mean? Shrines exist almost everywhere. In Shinjuku, am I right? Is that Shinjuku? I'm going to say, in Shinjuku there's a visitor center, and they'll have all the shrines you can visit. Some of them will have some tours, but I wouldn't suggest taking the tours unless you want to, have the money to spend, because you can honestly just walk to that shrine and do everything that that tour does. There's a really neat shrine in Harajuku, right outside the bus station, or the train station. It's like literally right behind it. And you walk down this nice little like gravel path, and it takes you to it. It's really neat. They have a little thing where you wash your hands or people take drinks from it. Anyways, there's a lot of that. You'd have to really research where those are. But yes, they do exist. I saw some other hands raised. I saw you raise it before, yes?
Well, I was a little late, so if you've already answered this, maybe you can just tell me personally, but what's the best way to find the plane? Find the best rate on the plane ticket over there?
It would be 6 weeks prior or 3 months prior to your departure flight. You're going to want to stick between those, and you're going to have a few days that you can book it, and those will be the best price.
So between 6 weeks and 3
No, it's either 6 weeks or 3 months.
Is there a reason why those are?
I have no idea. You'd have to ask them. Like I said, the rates fluctuate all the time, but I do run another convention, and we have to book guest flights all the time. So that's what we have found. 3 weeks or 6 months, and it's worked with local flights, it works with international flights. I saw there's a question over here. Do you have Not entirely. I mean, there is a the word otaku is something that is sort of looked down upon, but it's not. When we say otaku, we understand what it means to us. To them, it can be several different things. It's almost like an overly obsessed fan, where it's unhealthy for them to be a fan of that. But with that being said, anime there is a little different. I went to an anime convention there, and one of the showrunners came to me and asked me, how often is anime shown in America? And what he was wanting to know is how often is it shown on TV? And what I told him sort of shocked him, which was it shows for a couple hours at night. Sometimes it shows for a couple hours on certain channels, and it'll show for a couple hours on Saturdays. And he was a little blown back because it is shown, in Japan it's shown 24 hours a day on some channel, one show or another. And I mean, there are anime fans there. There's anime conventions there. Their anime conventions are much larger than ours, much larger. Where I believe the largest anime convention here is around 60,000 attendance. I want to say theirs is like 550,000 attendance. And I've been to 2 of them there. I went to Tokyo Anime Fair and to ACE, which is Anime Content Expo. And ACE is huge. Huge. The facility is giant, and it is like shoulder-to-shoulder traffic. But there is a lot of anime fans. So going there as a fan, I don't think you'd be looked down upon. I mean, and I'm a fan, I still watch it. I'm here, but I don't think that you were really looked down upon. If anything, I mean, they do kind of look at you differently because you're a foreigner. But like I said, if you come a little bit prepared, you can really see the difference. You can see that they appreciate that you're taking the time to learn their culture and their ways. Yes?
Where's your focus in Japan?
That's what the internet is for.
Sure.
I couldn't tell you that. With that being said, I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I know that's a Daniel Bryan show. I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I'm an all Japan, whatever fan. Tajiri actually just opened up his own organization there not too long ago. I don't know how well that's doing, etc. But I don't know much about it. I mean, it's pretty much like it is here. They rent out facilities, and you go there and it works. And that's like with any sort of musical act or whatever. Also, if you want to watch a movie while you're there, don't. What you're doing is you're watching a movie that is probably already out in DVD in the States, and you're going to pay about $25 for your movie ticket. Also, don't drink soda. Drink soda, it's fine. However, it's an import item, and there are no refills. Ever. Yes?
What about that movie everyone's about?
I was there for that. That was huge and amazing and worth every penny. And everybody, I didn't understand a word that was, or anything that was going on the screen, but I got a really neat little figure and some other collectible things that you cannot buy or buy from me.
Okay. So do you know what Super Saiyan 3 in that movie?
No spoilers.
They're never going to release it. They're selfish.
They might.
Sorry. I just wanted to ask,
What do you think about Motherland?
do you go alone or do you always go with people?
The first time I went alone. I don't suggest that. I suggest going with somebody. The first time I went for 3 weeks alone, and I found myself going to a visitor counter, or a foreigner counter, or a tourist counter, just so I could talk to somebody in English. And I'm not lying, I did that. I couldn't stand not talking to somebody or saying very little words. And my first time I went, the only thing I knew how to say was "arigato gozaimasu," and that was it. Well, and where's the toilet? But that was it.
Do you think, now if you went with a group, do you think there's a ideal number of people so that it doesn't get too complicated trying to coordinate everybody? Or
I mean, I would look at it like this: like if you go on any sort of vacation or any sort of trip, is if there's like 8 people in the group, if you think that's manageable, I think it'd be the same way in Japan. I don't think there's anything that makes it different from going somewhere else than Japan.
if you were taking somebody that was new, should you send somebody experienced off with them so they don't get totally lost?
Yes and no. I mean, it really depends if they understand how to read either maps or they know their directions very well. It is very easy to get lost. And with that being said, there are tour guides, there are people that know how, that you can have as a translator. And I mean, even Craigslist is a thing there. And that's actually how I found my first tour guide. And it was a very interesting conversation I had because I told my tour guide that it was I was very worried about it because I was just going to be a complete stranger off Craigslist. And what she told me was, it's okay, it's not as creepy as America. Okay. Can I take this last question? Okay, yep.
Like how much would one person need to like accumulate like these trips?
I can't read.
Like
How much did you save?
like
Sorry.
for me, how much would you like recommend gathering?
It really depends. Like I said, it's up to you. It's how much you want to spend. It's what you want to do. If you want to just go around, you're going to want to bring enough to eat and travel. And you're going to look at like $7 to $15 a day just in travel. You're going to look at $5 to $20 per meal, depending on how you want to eat, what you want to eat. And it's pretty easy to eat on the cheap. And then it just depends on how much you want to spend. So it's really dependent on you, but you're really going to want to think about all of that and then bring a little bit extra on top of it because anything can happen.